not your friend or anything. Damn, you think that you're the man. I think therefore I am.
I really dig this groove, and part of the reason why is it's very easy to mess up such a simple groove. It's very easy to make it totally just lacking of any depth and feel. It's easy to program, a drum beat with a bass drum and a hi-hat and a backbeat of some kind, and like just sort of make this thing that's perfectly lined up, quantized and everything to a grid, and like that's no problem. Anyone can do that, right? But you can screw that up and make it feel like it's just devoid of any human component. And I think that this particular groove has everything that you would want out of a straight ahead, perfectly even groove. Sometimes it's difficult to point out exactly where that comes from. I mean, some of it might be instrumentation, like literally coming down to what bass drum did they choose? What snare drum did they choose? Producers, the very good ones, which I think Finneas is a very, very good producer. They have a way of just sort of understanding like what sound is gonna work here. Anytime a musician tells you that a producer, somebody that makes music with a computer, is somehow less of a musician, like I fundamentally disagree with that. And I think that that is totally unfair because it would be easy to screw this up, and they did not.
Don't talk about me like how you might know how I feel. Top of the world, but your world isn't real.
This is the thing that Billie has done in a lot of her music that is just so good. And here's the thing, it's more than just saying, oh, well, she has good vocal harmonies. Because that, a lot of people have good vocal harmonies. That's kind of expected on a certain level, right? But I believe that there are two different components that really make these shine. Number one, her harmonies are not placed way into the back of the mix. If you listen to a lot of pop music or more mainstream music, there's always vocal harmonies. There's always 3-4 part harmonies going on, but they're always like super quiet. They're just designed to be kind of like a supplemental layer that you don't really hear. Well, in this, it's very much in the forefront. Like it's almost like a balance, like it's even. It's supposed to be 3 or 4 parts singing in unison, not a melody with background way, way, way off in the back in the mix. And the other part that I think makes her harmony so uniquely good is just this really, I don't know how else to describe the style besides like playful. It's just it doesn't need to be super locked in, like every note is exactly on pitch and oh, we're gonna use auto-tune and we're gonna like, which is fine if that's what you're after. If you're trying to make it perfectly calculated, then okay, do all that stuff and it probably is going to sound very good. But Billie's style is very much this sort of playful, loose kind of thing where there's fluctuations in the pitch that almost sound like they're completely on purpose. And I think there's a very close blend. Like it's almost like she's drawing somewhat of a speaking style into her harmony singing and just her melody singing in general. And I really, really am a fan of that. I think it feels really nice. It's a good groove. It fits into the groove very well. And it's just relaxed and playful. It's such a cool style. And it's something that I have not really heard all that much before. I love James Bond. I love the series. And I, most importantly, have always loved the music for James Bond. When it was announced that Billie was going to do the new Bond theme, and then I heard the song, I was like, this is just such a brilliant choice. I'm sure you've all heard it, but there's just a couple things I want to point out about what makes this so unbelievably good. Yeah.
I should have known.
Her extremely subtle, quiet style of singing, I just think is such a great fit for this application.
That the blood you bleed is just the blood you own. We were a pair, but I saw.
Yo, that is the that is one of my favorite parts of the whole song. I so appreciate when things like this draw from the history and the inspiration of these sounds. And it's so simple. I mean, just the plunger mute trumpet on there playing the line. It's so obvious, right? But like not everybody would make that decision. And Billie and Finneas actually worked together with Hans Zimmer on this, and what a brilliant combination that is, because some of these orchestral components to the song are just unbelievable. Yeah, wow. Billie has the style of singing that's, like we said, it's very subtle and very quiet, and I think it's such a cool effect and really nice to listen to. But she can sing her ass off. To hear those times when she will kind of dig into the pipes a little bit and let something ring, oh man, just really, really great. And I think that's a fantastic build-up to this piece. Really just beautiful.
With my future, can't wait to meet her. And
Man, wow, this is, it's so good. Okay, so this one I actually want to break down. I want to break down kind of what's going on in the chords here, as you guys can see. It's so good, and it's so classic, and this is what I appreciate so much about Billie and Finneas and how they write music. It's just like they draw from these influences in jazz and R&B and blues. I can only imagine, like, you know, and I'm sure many other things, but so beautifully worked into this, you know, their style, and it's, oh man. So this tune has such a gorgeous chord progression. It really is kind of a classic chord progression. We start out in sort of the this tune. I would say it's you know, it's based in E flat, so we can call this E flat. We start out with just the one chord, drop it into a dominant, which implies that we're now moving to the next place, and we do. We go right up to the 4 chord, A flat major, but then we flip it to be a minor 7th chord, treat it like a 2 in a 2-5, which will bring us back to, and we call that a backdoor 2-5 because rather than a 2-5 leading back to the 1, just a normal 2-5, which would be, we're gonna come at it from one full step below, which is why we call it a backdoor, and it sounds like this. Right? And it's just such a beautiful turnaround, especially in this particular context. So yeah, we have that minor 7th, A flat minor 7, D7, back to 1, flip it dominant again, 4 chord, now instead of resolving, we're going to go to the next part, which is this whole thing kind of functions as a 5 chord going to the minor 1 at C, climbing down, back to the 4, turn that 4 minor before letting it resolve back to the 1. That is such a beautiful sound. It's weird because it's, in some ways, I would consider that to be like a sentimental sound, you know, because it's sad, but also not, if that makes any sense. Like we have this, it's not traditionally sad in the sense of it being like a dark minor sound. It's just very sweet. The other thing that's so great about this too is the melody. Check this out.
I'm in love, but not with anybody else. Just wanna get to know myself.
So good. And I think that's something that often is like missing in a lot of modern music, where sometimes we rely mostly on like sounds or rhythms or, you know, a chord progression or a hook instrumentally, and sometimes the melody gets neglected. And we wind up with these sort of either just not many notes or just not, you know, very definitive, but this is just so beautiful. It just flows really, really nicely. I heard this for the first time very recently and I was like, whoa. It's just so incredible, absolutely beautiful. I guess some people maybe don't like Billie's music because of the vocal style, and I understand that. I mean, if it's not your vibe, then it's not your vibe, and that's totally fine. But the one thing that I don't think anybody can say is that there isn't a tremendous amount of musical integrity, musical intelligence, and thoughtfulness, and just it's just good. You cannot prefer the style, and nobody really can argue with you on that, but I will argue with you if you tell me that there's not an insane amount of talent here, both on Billie's side and as well as, Finneas as a producer and both of them as writers. I think they are uniquely good in today's mainstream artist kind of pool. And as a musician based in jazz and maybe, sort of lesser popular forms of music, I so much appreciate how in their writing you can hear these influences and they're not watered down. They'll straight up write a what you could basically use in a jazz chord progression or like an R&B kind of chord progression. That's just the tune. It's not like, oh, we're influenced by jazz, so we're gonna stick a saxophone line in the background here. No, it's genuinely influencing the direction of the music, and I really appreciate that as an artist. And I think that Billie and Finneas they're on another level. And here's the thing: I think part of what makes that clear is the fact that they do make music that sounds like mainstream. It makes total sense that some of this stuff has become so insanely popular, and she is as big of an artist as she is now. Because the music fits, it's marketable, it's accessible, it fits into that vein. But for me as an artist, the thing that I pick up on and I'm like, that's different, is the fact that when somebody can execute music that is marketable, that does fall into that accessible vein, but yet it still maintains such a high level of musical integrity, that's rare. And that is something that I think, not a lot of people are doing or have the capacity to do at this moment. I'm a fan. I'm absolutely a fan. I love what they're doing, and it's such a unique and interesting style to me. I always look forward to seeing the new thing, and it's not always gonna be necessarily, for me personally, like, oh, I'd go and just listen to this all day long every day. A lot of stuff, absolutely. But what it always is something that I'm genuinely impressed by. And in particular, like we said, the fact that it is mainstream, the fact that it is accessible and marketable, but it maintains such a high level of musicality. I think they're definitely on another level. But I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on what do you like, or if you don't like Billie Eilish's music, like what about it is it that you don't like? Because that's a conversation that we all can have, and I think everyone can bring up valid points. But these are just some reasons why I'm a fan. I think it's uniquely phenomenal. I can't wait to see what comes out next. You guys, that's it. That's gonna do it. Again, I'm so curious to hear sort of your thoughts about Billie Eilish's music and whether you like it or not like it and why. So let's have that conversation in the comments below. I'm looking forward to reading that. I feel like I don't need to say this with you guys because you're always amazing, but obviously respect people's opinions. I mean, some people are not gonna like it, and that's okay. But regardless, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.